Hello and welcome to this video. Today we will be doing a full review of the GRTE course, Google Red Teaming Expert. And I'm going to be doing actual demos for you guys from the course. I've received permission to do so. Let me go ahead and show that. As you can see here, I received permission. I asked Carlos, which is the owner of everything, to do this video. So with that being said, let me tell you what we're going to be doing in this video. I'm going to, besides the demos, I'm going to be covering my personal opinions, the pros that I found in the course, the cons that I found in the course, and I'm going to be sharing a little bit about the most valuable thing that I gained out of this course, which is why we're all here, which is, in my opinion, how to actually provide the customer, the client, with a full deliverable, how to get those vulnerabilities, configurations, and the overall process, which is all documented on HackTricks. That's where the course is founded, and that's where the format of the course began. So let's get into this. Let's start off with a lab demo. I'm going to be doing one of the labs here. I started a few labs. I'm here on the dashboard. You'll see that I'm 80% done this course. And if we go to the labs, continue where you left off. I might be doing compute engine, or I'm going to be doing compute engine, and then we're going to talk a little bit. And then I'm going to do cloud functions, a demo over there. And then we're going to talk about how to conduct an assessment. And then we're going to be doing another demo in BigQuery. I personally like these three services, and it'll serve as a little bit of a review for me. So let's go ahead and get into it. So right off the bat, when you get into these sections of exploitation of GCP services, you're firstly going to watch the video, and then you're going to conduct the lab tasks. So the resources are also valuable and essential, necessary for you to get the flags, because you'll be doing a little bit of research, going to the HackTricks website to get familiar with what you have to do. The videos themselves are not enough. You have to do the research and utilize the commands that they have in the resources rather. So how most of the labs work is they're going to give you a service key. So if I go ahead and copy this. By the way, sorry about the music. I'm just trying this music thing for the first time. So if the music sucks, please comment in the comments below. Anyways, we're going to be doing compute. So let me go make a CP compute. So we get a service key. You can see here, this is the service key. I'm going to name it the name of the service account. Then I'm going to authenticate to the service account. Oops. Spelled it wrong. All right, we are now authenticated to the service account. Let me go ahead and set the project. I believe I've already set the project. Well, we can confirm what's going on in the config. Oh, I haven't. Oh my God. There we go. All right, as you can see here, our account is Compute Lab Start Point, and the project is my project. Now, you do get your own personal project when you do this course, and that project, it's possible to reset it as well. I had to reset it once or twice due to some errors that were occurring in some of the labs, but for the most part, the labs are stable. So now, anyways, the first thing that we're going to do in what you're going to do in these labs is you're going to enumerate the permissions. Now, before we do so, I want to note that although the labs have the target permission that you're going to abuse or exploit written as the title of the task or the title of the lab portion, you should be conducting some enumeration to find what the permission is or where to find it. That's because in an actual pen test or in an actual assessment, you're not going to be relying on the title of a lab task. You're going to have to find the permission yourself. So basically, what that means for you is you're basically going to be firstly brute forcing permissions. And I found some success. I found that most of the time it works. However, sometimes it doesn't work depending on where the bindings are set. Now, if you're not sure what that means, you're going to get familiar in the course itself, but let's go ahead and do some permission brute forcing. Okay. Okay, so we have just began brute forcing now. Because this tool is so essential, let me go ahead and show you it on GitHub. As you can see, it's 0% and it started brute forcing their permissions. If I just search brute force GCP permissions GitHub, we'll find it. It's made by the owner of the HackTricks platform, Carlos. And basically, this tool is going to be like your bread and butter for getting situational awareness or understanding the permissions of your user or service account that you're using to conduct the lab or finish the tasks. However, I do want to say that although it's important to brute force your permissions, most of the labs provide you with enough permissions to enumerate. So as you can see, we can list all the bindings in the project level. And because of that, let's go ahead and check the bindings of our user. Project level bindings of our user. All right, So as you can see, they give you a range of permissions via standard roles. And sometimes there are custom roles as well, which you have to enumerate. However, like I said, even though we're brute forcing the permissions, they do give you the roles that you need to enumerate. And as you can see here, we have Cloud Asset Viewer, which means you can conduct white box like enumeration over the project, is listing like all the resources, listing everything you want. Compute Viewer, which is pretty self-explanatory. We're doing compute lab, so they're giving us viewer over compute. Role viewer, so we can check out the roles that we have. Service account viewer, just to see, you know, the service account target. In the privilege escalation labs, you're going to have a target service account that through exploitation of whatever service, you gain access to that next level service account that gives you more privileges, like reading the flag or accessing a database, etc. And OS config service agents, service usage consumer. Anyways, let's see if our brute forcing is done. Nope, 60%. Okay, whilst this is conducting, let's go ahead and talk about another essential portion or essential phase of doing these labs, which is the research phase. So as you can see here, the title of the lab is Compute Instances Set Metadata. Now, often, or I'd say half the time, you're going to be getting an idea of how to exploit this in the video itself. However, I've always used the HackTricks documentation, like the HackTricks wiki. It's pretty much a wiki, and it's accessed through these hints over here. They should just call it documentation, really, because it is here. So if we click on it, we go to the privilege escalation section that is regarding the permission that we're trying to abuse. So, compute instances set metadata. This permission gives the same privileges as a previous permission, but over a specific instances instead to a whole project. The same exploits and limitations as for the previous section applies. Fantastic. So I know this is kind of unheard of, but you're scrolling through documentation in this case. I have personally very rarely needed to look up documentation. I know in the Pwn Labs boot camps, research is a part of it. Like it's like any intermediate level course, you're going to be conducting research and documentation. But like in Hack the Box, for example, I didn't really need to read documentation. Most of what you need is in the modules themselves, unless you want to get deep into it. Like, for example, Kerberos, I read a chapter of a textbook for that just because I didn't like the lack of information in some of the Active Directory modules. But anyways, let's get into this. So it says that, hey, look, the same privileges, and you do the same thing as what you did in the previous permission. So we go to the previous permission, set common instance metadata, and this is going to allow us to modify the metadata. And if you can modify the metadata, you can do something like this, like add metadata, startup script, and add a reverse shell. All right. Well, this is a perfect example of what I was going to get to in the pros and cons section. In this course, you're going to be requiring an endpoint with SSL, and you're going to be requiring a publicly accessible virtual machine, or use ngrok in order to catch reverse shells. So what I did was I used an EC2 instance, And that's what we're going to be doing today. Actually, what we could do is set a custom SSH. So if we go here to add custom SSH, you'll see a mini guide of how to do that. Now, throughout the course, I highly recommend that you take notes. And what I mean by that is, for example, as you can see here in my my playbook, this is like an Excel on Google. I already have that process. So if we go to search SSH GCP instances, add SSH to metadata. I mean, this is to metadata. And I have this process laid out for me because I learned it in the course. Now, if you don't do this, you're going to be having to go back online and search for the process, or trying to memorize it and memorize all the commands, which, you know, I don't really have time to do that. I only personally took 1 month to do this course, actually 24 days so far, and I don't have time to continue like after this month is finished. So I'm not going to be memorizing all the GCP commands, or even like for any platform that I hack or do a course on. I keep the commands, and I keep all of what I learned in an Excel, because I can just go back to it and get those commands instead of taking more time to memorize them or take more time to research about, you know, what the commands are in the future. So let's go ahead and conduct this process. Firstly, we make a key and a public key. As you can see here, the brute force finished. Go ahead and paste this command. All right, firstly, we make a key. Go ahead and check out the permissions that we found as well. So when you're brute forcing permissions, I want you to hone in on one specific goal that we have in mind, which is the permission that we're abusing discoverable through this mechanism? And thus, is the permission a project level permission? So as you can see here, compute instances get, and what is the permission that we're looking for? Compute instances set metadata. So since this is also a default role that we're getting this permission from, we should be able to find it quite easily. Compute instances set metadata. Here it is. Okay, perfect. So now we know in the future, if we compromise a user or a service account with this permission, then we repeat this process. This is the overall layout of the lab tasks. You abuse a permission, you conduct the attack or the exploitation, and then you save in your mind the fact that that is repeatable if you're able to compromise something with the same permissions. So let's go ahead and finish this process and finish this lab so we can get to the rest of the video. Now you make a meta.txt file using the key. And then we see which instance we're going to do this on. This is going to be Compute Lab 1 instance. pretty quite self-explanatory, but one thing to note is that this is the overall format of each lab. There will be different instances or different accounts, and they will all be numbered in accordance to which account or which instance or which service version that it's dealing with. So we're doing the first task in the lab, so we're exploiting the first instance. So, and then we change the metadata with this command. All right, metadata is changed. Now, pretty sure we can just SSH in. Grab the external IP. Another thing is there is no VPN access. Everything is public. So if you want to use this course as a red team exercise, you want to experiment, do some advanced, like make red team channels, test your in development C2 frameworks, all of that is actually very doable. And you could even exploit some services in order to make them usable for your own purposes, testing purposes as well, which is quite extraordinary. They give you a lot of access, which I'll get to in the pros and cons and my own opinion and everything. So as you can see, we are in here now. Now, since we're here, I'm pretty sure we're going to just curl the metadata to get the target service account. Since we're doing this, I want to mention one thing, which is please check all the metadata before you go for the service account. And that's just because when we do so, we can very easily catch a user-driven error where somebody is setting a custom value in the metadata somewhere, a startup script, whatever it is. And for that reason, please check the entirety of the metadata service before, going like rushing to get the service account. But yeah, I learned that doing a lab. Anyways, let's get the instance metadata. Service account default. All right, here we have a token. So there are a couple ways to use the token, by the way, and you're going to be dealing with a lot of tokens. You're going to be dealing with some like single tasks utilizing multiple tokens, especially when you get to the black box and white box. You're going to be chaining attacks. So what I suggest to you, if you're going to do this course, is please use token files and don't set token environment variables. I say that because you might want to go back to a previous token. You might want to like juggle with the tokens at some point. So having the tokens in their designated files is much more organized than just, you get one token, then you set it as your environment variable. And then you get another token, you set it as the environment variable. But what happened to the previous token? What if you want to go back and enumerate something or check something or confirm the misconfiguration and, you want to go back and document what happened? So having the tokens like this is much more organized. So now that we're here, we can go back to the lab and it'll say where the flag is always in the description. So in this case, it says the flag is inside a cloud storage bucket. Go ahead and enumerate the storage. There is no possibility that we can do so. Now, this is another very important thing about the course is please don't think too hard about it. Like, you might be like, okay, well, maybe I missed this. Maybe the storage was disclosed in some part of the attack and I have to find it. No, bro. The permissions are all given at the first initial service account most of the time. So we go and conduct this command as the initial service account, and hopefully it'll show us the... Oh. Never mind. Maybe it was hidden. Oh, here it is. Okay. It actually was in the metadata. Sorry about that. So you might have to think hard about it, I guess. So if you didn't catch on, the flag is in this bucket. We don't have read access to list. We don't have list access to list all the buckets, but we found the bucket where the flag is inside. Now, if you brute force your permissions over this new service account that we placed the token in the token file for, you will find that although there's no list permissions, there's permissions to get objects from a bucket. Now, with the binding probably and obviously being on the storage bucket itself, there's no way for you to brute force your permission unless you know the bucket. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get the objects of this bucket, aka the flag. Woohoo! Flag. And that, my friends, is how the layout of these labs are. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the pros and the cons, in my opinion. Now, firstly, if we go over the pros, look, the access that you get is incredibly extensive. Like, we're talking about a lot of tasks, 67 flags total across many services. Let me go ahead and show you all the services. So, IAM, and then we have KMS, Key Management, Secrets Manager, Cloud Storage, Compute Engine, which is virtual machines, serverless, Cloud Functions, File Store, Cloud SQL, BigQuery, PubSub, Artificial Registry. Now, I'll get to why I didn't do these when I get to the con section. Source repositories, which is being depreciated, actually is going to be exterminated very soon. Cloud Build, App Engine, Cloud Run, Google APIs, Cloud Shell, Cloud Scheduler, Workflows. Now, some of them don't have tasks, such as source repositories because it was depreciated, and Cloud Shell. Actually, Cloud Shell does have a task. It just gives you an account and tells you to open up Cloud Shell. But yeah, there are so many services that you're going to be exploiting, and that is the first and major pro. Besides the services, I can't get into the methodologies because Carlos told me specifically not to disclose the white box or black box, and thus I'm just going to stay away from methodologies as a whole. However, this bad boy right here is the whole reason why you're here. After you finish these services, you come over here and you top it off by learning how to do your job. After that, security services, aka blue teamers, I didn't touch that, but I'm probably going to once I find some time. Yeah, and I'll talk about why that is in the section about what the most valuable thing that I gained from this course is. So let's go back to the pros and cons. All right, so the last pro that I wanted to mention is the repetition. Now, the compute lab by itself has like 5 labs, and the IM lab has like 5 to 10 labs. And although every, exploit or every abuse is specific and, unique, mostly it's kind of repetitive. Now, you might be like, okay, well, I don't want to do, repetitive tasks, being misled that it's teaching me more different exploits. However, yeah, you do, because the more you do attacks on the service, the more familiar you get on the service, and the overall better awareness that you have over what the environment could be and how they can connect together. You understand the features or functionalities of a service, you do it again on another service, and then now you suddenly know how it could be possible to chain those attacks between services. If you only do one thing on a service, which is what you're going to do in the apprentice course, the apprentice course has much less tasks, then believe me, you're not even going to remember what you did. I'll do 5 tasks on a service, and even me, I won't remember what I did. That's why I take notes, I do my research, I make videos about what I do, and hopefully after all that's done, I'll retain some information about what I'm doing. So yeah, that's it for the pros. Now let's talk about some of the cons. The first con that I'm going to talk about is for people who are skipping the apprentice course. Now, I skipped the apprentice course because I've been doing cloud stuff for probably like a year. I think so. So I'm quite familiar with cloud services on Azure, GCP, and AWS. However, I place this as a con because I want to warn people. This course assumes a deep understanding of common pen testing areas, such as networking, and quite complex areas such as web application pen testing, and specifically injections for the sake of initial access. Now, if you're not familiar, the most obvious route to a GCP environment, or actually any cloud environment, the most common entry point is the web, or publicly exposed websites that are being hosted on the cloud or have some association with any cloud services in a cloud environment. So because of that, all of, I can't actually spoil some of the black box stuff, but you're going to need to know different types of injections, command execution injections for specifically what we did was Linux, and SQL injections for the SQL service, and BigQuery, which is quite similar to the SQL service as well. So you're going to need to know and understand how to conduct injections. You're also going to need to know and understand how to properly catch reverse shells, because some of the, actually, quite a few of the service exploitations require you to either catch a reverse shell or some kind of request that discloses information for you. This is a another con, which is some of the services on GCP can only deal with endpoints that have SSL, so URLs with HTTPS. And for the service PubSub, for example, in PubSub, there's one of the tasks where you exploit the fact that you can make a custom push. Like you can update where the push is landing, so you receive the message on your own endpoint. Now, I can't do that because I don't have a domain to work with at the time of this report. And I also did not set up like a cloud account where I can use a serverless function or like deploy a web application in Flask to, get that PubSub pushed to that endpoint. So it's kind of a con that they don't give you like the infrastructure that they're requiring you to have. What they actually did was they said, hey, just use ngrok. And ngrok is actually banned by my service provider or banned in my country or something. So when I contacted the support about that, they just told me, well, use an alternative to ngrok. And it is solvable, easily if I just had the time to, get some GCP credits, start a run service, like a cloud run service, and then put a Flask application on there and get requests that way, because I'm pretty sure the URL for Cloud Run is HTTPS and the SSL is functioning properly for me to use it. However, like I said, I didn't like that, all you have to do is just give us an endpoint and give us a jump box, and then we can conduct all of the labs without having to do anything extra. So that's kind of a con. And the last con that I'm going to mention is not really a con, actually. It's more of like my personal advice. Please just do the apprentice course first. Listen, if you have the money to do this course, then you probably have the money to do the apprentice course first. So with that being said, please just do the apprentice course first. Get your first run. I would call it like your first quick run of GCP services. And then with the expert course, it'll be like your second, more advanced run where you get some review, some, I would call it quite necessary, required review. And then add to that the advanced attacks or the attacks that require a little bit more pentesting knowledge and expertise. Actually, I'm going to add one more con, is where I'm going to emphasize that although I did not do the exam, I spoke with somebody in what is it called, HackTricks, a little bit about the exam. And the exam is apparently similar to the black box exercises, which you could argue are all the exercises. Now, when I shared my concerns, saying, hey, look, I'm kind of only here for cloud. Like the client wants me to submit a report, and that report has mostly misconfigurations. And I'm not going to be pivoting internally to reach an internal, cloud service that I have to inject through a proxy and do all this like pen testing shenanigans. And they did tell me to, hey, like, chill out, don't worry about it. You are gonna pass the exam kind of thing. But I'm just kind of mentioning for the final time, this course utilizes and requires and assumes a pretty intermediate level of general pen testing. I believe there's even like a section on, you know, general, it's like called general pen testing knowledge section. And that entire video is just like, hey, this is what a reverse shell is, and this is what, you know, networking is, or whatever. I didn't even watch it, but yeah, there's like an actual section just saying that, like, this is, you need general pen testing knowledge. So if you're a cloud engineer coming into this being like, hey, I'm trying to get some security awareness, I'm trying to get some offensive security perspective on what I'm doing, yeah, you're going to want to do something like the CPTS first or the OSCP. But you know, for the most part, that's what everyone does anyways. First, you do the general pen testing before you get into cloud pen testing. So that brings us to the final part of this video, which is, what was the greatest, most beneficial thing that I gained from this course? The most valuable portion of this course was the finale. This is how to put it all together part. And here's what I mean. So let me go to this section. All right. Here we are. GCP White Box Assessment Methodology. This is why I did the course. Because when I get an assessment, I want to destroy that. You know what I mean? I want to be like, I want to finish that confidently, giving the deliverable to the client, knowing what I'm doing, knowing how to do it, having done it before, having practiced, and, you know, knowing what I'm giving to the client. And that's what this course delivered to me. This course taught me how to do that. And not only that, but it taught me to the point where I was able to be like, hey, wait, I can add stuff to this methodology. Now, Carlos told me not to disclose anything about the white box and black box labs. However, this methodology is revised. It's my own writing mostly. And not only that, it's also online. So let me go ahead and show you. This is basically where I built it from. Basic methodology, benchmark checks, services enumeration, check exposed assets, check permissions. This is where I made my own version off of. Let me show you. Let me show you my own version. So firstly, I noted down the roles that you need to request just to be able to be a security reviewer kind of thing, if we're talking about similar Azure roles. You need viewer, resource manager, folder viewer, resource management, organization viewer. You need to enable a bunch of APIs as well. But we'll get into the tools after I go over the methodology. However, to, you know, as evidence again that I'm not going against what Carlos didn't want me to show you, even these tools are also here. Purple Panda, multi-cloud tools, it's all here on HackTricks. So I'm not disclosing anything that is confidential. All right, let's go over the methodology, which is quite literally what you're going to do in the assessment. Benchmark checks, and then services enumeration, exposed assets, the permissions, and then the integrations. When I spoke to another cloud pentester, and I'm like, hey, how does your methodology vary, you know, if we're speaking in terms of the HackTricks methodology? And they actually told me that it's like almost never going to be different. Like, this is the staple. These are the things that you're going to be doing every time. So let's go over them. And you know, you're going to be building your own quirks in your own methodology, but I'm going to be showing you just kind of the level that I would conduct the GCP assessment if I were to do one today. Firstly, benchmark tests. Now, that involves automated tooling. We'll talk about the automated tooling in a second here. And then we're going to gather the dashboards and graphs for overtime usage. And from this, I mean that we're going to be using, like, similar to having your Bloodhound up. You know, your Bloodhound is up throughout the entire engagement in an Azure pentest or an Active Directory engagement. That Bloodhound is going to be reusable throughout the entire engagement. You might even want to go back to it and, you know, use it to take a screenshot of a privilege escalation route that you're abusing or that you want to show the impact of a misconfiguration through. So you have this graph up throughout the entire pentest or security review or whatever it is you're doing. Now, we don't have Bloodhound in GCP, but I'll just go to the tooling section now. What we do have is Purple Panda. So if I show you Purple Panda, you'll see the same graph view that we know Bloodhound uses. There's actually no images. What? Maybe HackTricks has images. Okay, there's a whole video about it. Forgot about that. So let me show you how beautiful this thing is. It's like literally Bloodhound.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Anyone that may stumble across this video here, I am super honored to be hanging out with...
Check this out. Look at that, bro. Look at that. Circles and lines and everything. And between me and you, when I was checking out this tool, it actually has in some ways more details than Bloodhound, but maybe I'm just being biased. Yeah, so your graph view, going back here, taking screenshots, using it as reference, etc. That's what I mean by setting up your dashboards and your graph view. But besides this, you can also have up your, you know, your cloud suite. I mean, your Scout suite. And your Scout suite is not going to be a graph view, although it's going to be like it looks literally, it's a web application. And it's going to have a giant database. It's going to show you, like, here's all the roles, here's all the users, here's all the services, and it's also going to have misconfigurations. So a lot of these tools are going to give you standard misconfigurations for driven by CIS standards, and you're going to be using that as not only, you know, vulnerabilities in and of themselves, depending on how critical they are, but as kind of like a compass to say, okay, well, there's this misconfiguration, and I know that this alongside this other misconfiguration leads to a huge privilege escalation chain. So you take that, you take the Scout Suite database information, go over to Purple Panda, check if the privilege escalation is visible on the graph, take a screenshot, report it as a vulnerability, report it as a misconfiguration, and here is the evidence, and here are beautiful diagrams, and you can have the entire, give them the entire Scout Suite database in a USB or something. You can give them all this information as well whilst you're creating your report. So in terms of benchmark checks, like I said, assemble misconfigurations from tooling. And overall, this phase is going to give you a general awareness. You're going to understand the size of the environment. You're going to map out their operations, etc. After that, you're going to be conducting deeper checks into these services. You're going to have an awareness already of which services are available, which ones have misconfigurations, etc. But here you're going to be conducting manual checks, maybe even creating a low privileged user and assessing the service that way. And here you just dig deeper into the services and you find possibly more misconfigurations. In my experience doing assessments, I found that you kind of fill up your report with low and medium entries using the benchmark checks. However, like critical, it's very highly likely that you find critical vulnerabilities through deeper interactions with the actual services that are available in the environment. So that's why this is crucial to do. Like I heard some companies are just using Prowler and then submitting that. That's not the kind of professional that you want to be. Like as a security professional, you want to be giving the client something that they can really use to completely transform their environment, make them secure, make the people working secure, and overall protecting them with your work instead of just treating it as like just another day at work. After this services enumeration, you're going to be checking what the exposed assets are. I believe there are some tools to assess this. But basically what this means is what services in a visible way or a invisible way or through some second order, indirect way can be exposed to the internet. And this is going to be, preventing the most common way of entry, like I said, which is, this is how hackers get in. It's through an SSRF, through some kind of web vulnerability, through some kind of exposed web application, exposed service. And this section is all about protecting the client from that. We're going to be mapping out the unauthenticated attack surface. So what services or assets are visible, aka you're going to be using Cloud Enum. Cloud Enum is a incredibly useful tool for this. However, please customize it in order to fuzz for longer or find more assets. Wait, let me show you Cloud Enum real quick. Can confirm this is an incredible tool. Cloud Enum. What it does is it basically just fuzzes using or capable of fuzzing for Azure, GCP, and AWS. And it fuzzes for exposed applications, exposed services, exposed web applications. And it basically knows, the naming schema of these services. And so it knows where to place the keywords. And you supply it with some keywords, supply it with one keyword, or you could provide a file. Now, if you want to provide a really big file of keywords, which you don't really need to do, I would just put like the company name or variations like 5 keywords, 5 to 10 keywords of variations of the company name. But if you want to utilize a larger file, I found that the tool is not very friendly with that. There's some kind of problem there's some kind of limit, or perhaps it's my computer or my virtual machine. I'm not sure what it is. But anyways, Cloudy Noom. There's also a tool that is made specifically for GCP for finding the unauthenticated attack surface. Let me see if I put it in here. I actually did not put it here, but there were a few tools here. Let me go ahead and find it. Sorry, I'm gonna have to go through the section in the course again to find those tools. But basically, if you have white box access, there are tools that that lay out all of the publicly exposed endpoints or services. Can any private locations be accessed? Are exposed assets vulnerable? Can exposed assets be further locked down at all? This one is always doable in your assessment. Like, the client can always be better locked down or more secured. So pivots, privilege escalation, lateral movements of exposed vulnerable attack surface. So what this means is that if a service is misconfigured, then although it's not publicly accessible, now through that misconfiguration, we can abuse a vulnerability, and then that service is now exposed. So these are incredible entries for your assessments if you can find them. Then the permissions sections, we pretty much use the permissions of all of the users, service accounts, etc., to find misconfigurations or overly privileged users, or accounts. These are entries in your assessment in and of themselves because we follow the principle of least privilege, so nobody needs too many roles than what they're utilizing. That just produces an increased attack surface. Unused accounts, this is where your familiarity with the GCP is going to come in handy. So you're going to want to gather like a database, a CVS of all the users with when they last logged in, how often they log in, their behavior, etc., and then find vulnerabilities within that realm. Unused keys, multi-factor authentication review. Are they even using MFA? Who's not using MFA? That's an entry in and of itself on your assessment. Federation settings. Here we might want to gather from the client themselves what the federation settings are if you don't have access to that third party. And SA user delegation and privilege escalation chains. So this, if you're not familiar, you're going to be familiar with what this means if you do the course, because this basically means like there are permissions between accounts and users that provide delegation functionality. So if one account can delegate to another account, and then that account can do this or that service action, and then that service action is vulnerable to an injection that leads to another privilege escalation. And basically you want to find chains like this to report as a surface area or a critical attack path that should be remediated. cross-organization or inter-organization delegation. This is referring to an entire section in the course about delegation, where a service account or a user can have the ability to, delegate to anything or to a service account in a different organization. And that's just abusable. GWS workspace groups. I included this after doing the Google Workspace section, because Google Workspace groups can provide users with GCP access. So if there's a Google Workspace groups that are org-wide self-enrollment enabled, so anybody in the organization can come in and be like, hey, I want to be a part of this group. Well, that's a huge attack surface, because now anybody can have access to the GCP services, depending on how privileged they get once they get into this group. Then lastly, integrations, accounts that can be abused, actions of above and ramifications. An example, who can write to a bucket which GCP is getting data from, like an S3 bucket, and integrations like that. So that's a quite relevant phase, because as you probably know, if you're working in the cloud or even on-prem, you'll probably know that most companies are using some kind of cloud service or containerization. Like even, anyways. So these are the phases of the methodology, and I hope that you can take from this and make your methodology better and make it even better than this based on your experience and your own skill set. But after this, I kind of digged a little bit deeper when I was doing the white box section onto how to conduct the manual checks. Now, this is not everything, but it's some of what you can look out for. Metadata, network exposure, who can OS log in. That's a misconfiguration according to even CIS standards, API scopes, custom images, environment variable. On multiple services, there are environment variables which can hold secrets, buckets, exposed buckets, etc. So let me scroll through this real quick. You can pause if you want to copy in them. And yeah, so that is what I gained the most out of the course, which is how to do the actual job. And I'm going to carry this knowledge with me throughout all of my work, whether it's cloud or on-premise or whatever it is. It's usually going to be comprised of the same phases, and in a white box assessment at least, which is most of the assessments. That's pretty much it. So thank you very much for watching. If you want to talk about this, I'd love to talk to you about cloud assessments in general, pen testing, red teaming. If you have a project that you want or think I could help you out in, whatever it may be, you can contact me on LinkedIn, Discord, or here on YouTube. All the links are in the YouTube channel. There's like a link section if you click on the channel. And otherwise, please like, comment, and subscribe so that I can make more videos if you like it. Thank you very much, and see you later.